Today's conversation is with Chris McGeady of CM Housing Solutions. Chris runs and operates a successful wholesale real estate company in Chester County, and he possesses a ridiculous amount of knowledge about running a fix and flip company at scale also. Chris and I plan to sit down to go over some issues that he was dealing with his sales team for the wholesale company in a real, raw, unfiltered way, dive into troubleshooting, problem solving, and getting on the other end of the issue. These are the types of conversations that I'm super fired up and excited to share with the world, because I think a lot of times, especially in the real estate industry, people hold their problems and their struggles close to their chest. Everybody wants to share the highlight reel and not the real of what happens in life and in business. So if you find value in this video or audio, however you're listening today, please like, follow, share, comment, as well as find Chris and CM Housing Solutions, give them a follow, support them as well. Thanks so much. Here's my conversation with Chris. Chris, what's going on in your wholesale business?
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot. Yeah. So I came to your office today. I'm just going to dive right into it.
Let's
came
go.
to your office for a reason. So we've had light conversations in the past. I know we've been friends for a while. You come to our meetups and we've met at different places talking about the business. And it always seems like you can probably respect this. As a business owner, there's the highlight of your week or the highlight of your month. Like, this is the most important thing that I have to do. And you dive into it. And when you're working on your own at the top, diving into that is a good thing for that particular problem, but it could potentially kill the rest of your business.
Certainly can.
And coming from the flipping background into wholesaling recently in the past 2 years, I'm finding myself doing that like a tennis ball. So I came to just kind of like tabletop, round table, if you will, and see if I can put some of my problems on the table and maybe just talk through them.
Yeah,
right?
no,
So
absolutely.
I'll rewind you a little bit. Last June, we had upwards of about 12 employees in the office. 2 acquisitions and dispositions, all in the office. Transactions, realtor, which was semi on the team. Now we have a new realtor, and I'm married to her, so we don't have that realtor anymore.
Makes sense.
And then some supporting casts, if you will. So we have somebody that was acting as like an office manager. I had brought a sales manager in so that I could focus on some of those bigger items within the business to try and help us grow, whether it be raising money or, going to find a new lead source or like really dialing in the KPIs and trying to grow from there. Now, did I hop out of that too fast? Possibly. Maybe. I'm going to say yes.
What too fast?
Hop out of the everyday of each position.
Okay, got it.
I wasn't really diligent about taking part of the daily huddles and stuff like that. After a while, I kind of felt like the departments were taking care of themselves in a sense, whereas sales on the acquisition side was having really good conversations and meetings with Dispo. And for a period of time, we were really doing well. It was going the way you would expect it to, picking up consistent contracts. KPIs seemed to be okay, depending on the goals that we set. And the Dispo was good too, but there was a fall off. So that was in June. So there was a fall off around maybe September, October. And I guess the market had, started to shift. And when things got tougher, I noticed that people weren't getting tough with that. Is that me doing that? I thought I turned my phone off.
Ringing?
Yeah.
No, that's probably next door.
Yeah. So I let that ride for a while and had individual conversations with the different departments and try and motivate. How do we, leads aren't as good as they were 2 months ago. How do we get those leads? How do we go out and get them ourselves? Like trying to motivate behind the person, and wasn't doing a great job at that because I wasn't devoting time to that on a consistent basis. So long story short, because that's not the root of my problem today, what had happened was between September, October-ish, and February, I came to a decision that I had to cut a lot of the team and really scale back to almost where we started, which would have been Mel, myself, and my transaction coordinator, who's been with us now for about 4 years.
Okay.
So we went from 12 to 3. And I said, we got to do a hard reset find out what we're doing wrong. Really, I wanted to create a good core. That way, when we built back up off of it again, we can say, this is how we do things, instead of saying, let's figure out how to do it as a team moving forward, when there's no set standard process in place. So that was the plan. That always sounds like a good plan, because then you're going to do it 100% right the next time.
Sounds like it.
So where we are today, from February to today, is I hop back into the acquisition seat. I lied with the three. We do have a lead manager that's a VA, and she's been with us for about 2.5 years, and she's excellent. So the lead management follow-up hasn't been a problem for the past 2 years. She's phenomenal.
Awesome.
So as you find the bottlenecks in your business, what we were finding is that the leads and the appointments were no issue. It was an issue when it got to acquisitions. So I jumped back into that 100% and then started filling the pipeline again. And we started getting contracts. And then I knew, because I had let everyone go, that Mel at the time was helping with dispositions, but that's not her gig. I can do that side too, but if you take your focus off of one side and devote it to the other, now that starts faltering. So I was having a hard time with time management, and so that at some point I was starting to feel that dam begin to burst again. And I said, I need help. So it went from, I'm going to do this for the next year by myself. Let's build this thing up to a phenomenal level, and then I'll start bringing people back on again. And it just seemed like this is just a rotating loop, if you will, that I'll be back here again next year. So in the meantime, the acquisitions has still been strong. It's been me primarily since February until maybe 3 weeks ago. I brought somebody on who's not doing it by themselves. They're getting training. I actually hired somebody to train them, so it wasn't me, because I knew that was part of the problem. Is when I hired somebody on, then it didn't matter what I was doing on a daily basis. If my focus was training that person, it was all hurting.
Yep.
So now I brought somebody on to train them. So my focus right now is dispositions, which I have somebody doing that from a VA standpoint, using the systems that we have, the programs that we use. Where I thought we were doing it correctly, last Friday I found out that we were doing it completely wrong. And this is why I'm sitting in front of you today.
Love it.
So we brought on about 11 contracts in the past 2.5 weeks.
For that,
yeah.
Hell yeah.
And of those 11, we've moved 4 of them as of yesterday, but because of what I found on Friday. So we have a process in place where we send out to our cash buyer list. We send out emails, text messages. We try and do some follow-up phone calls on people that see our marketing. And then we have a list of people that we pull that we call. Well, I say we do this. We have a process written on paper that says we should do this. It wasn't happening. There was a communication barrier there, which I'm learning, and I thought it was just blatant. I'm not doing it. The communication barrier came from, here's the list that we want to pull when we send a property out that's not super popular. You
Yep.
can send a property out and have 60 responses in a half hour,
Yep.
and an offer 2 hours from now. Then you have other properties you put out, and it's quiet for a couple of days. You have to work a little bit harder at, and that's fine. It's all part of the business. So in those cases, though, we have a process put in place where we maybe pull a list of buyers that maybe didn't see the marketing, and let's reach out to them via text, picking up the phone, or using a dialer, however it is that you choose to do that. It didn't happen the first time that we went through the training for it. So we went through a second training where it was live. It was a Zoom call. We recorded it on Loom. That way she would have it moving forward. And this particular property we had sent it out to about 3,500 buyers. And
Via email
and text.
Okay.
Right. So of those 3,500, a portion of them saw it. We were able to pull this other list it was a dense area, a list of within 2 miles of this property, cash purchases that had happened, and it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 10,000. It wasn't 10,000 buyers, it was transactions that happened. So when we were able to extract that list and filter it down, we were down to like 6,000.
Okay.
And we had 9 properties to move at the time. So I said, that's a lot when there's a problem in the dispo process. So I said, let's work from the top down and the bottom up. I'll help you out, right? Let's use this process. And you take the first property, I'll take the bottom property, and we'll work it.
Meet you in the middle.
That sounds great. So about an hour in, I've made, I used the dialer for it, but I made about 300 calls, made a couple connections, and I checked in on her, and I said, how you making out? And she said, it was nothing but voicemails on the first property, so I'm moving to the second one. I said, this is an hour. There ain't no way you called 6,000 people in an hour.
Yep.
So I went back and I said, all right, let's stop. Let's get on a call and let's see, like, who did you call?
And this is a VA that's doing this
It's a
for
VA,
you?
yeah.
Okay.
So I said, who did you call? And then she showed me, and I said, well, that's not what we went over. Did you get the link of the video of the instructions that we gave of how we want this done? Yeah. Because it was that morning we did the training, and it was in the afternoon we were putting it into play. So that's where I found that communication barrier. So
got it.
I can't put 100% fault on her.
Sure.
We have to find where that connection is.
Yep.
But in the meantime, there are some things that have been suggested to me by outside sources when I reach out, like, how are you guys doing your dispo on a consistent basis and not having to, what you want is you don't want to do it perfect day one. Obviously, this is something we're going to build into and get better at. What you do want is when you put a contract into your team's hands, that it flows through the process with some level of confidence.
Right.
Which presently I don't have. And that's where I sit.
Got it. So out of that conversation that you ended up having with your VA about, did you go through the training video? Did you have any questions? Okay, clearly you didn't do what we laid out for you and everything. Like, how did that conversation go?
So we're still working through that. That was Friday was the initial training and putting into play.
Okay.
Monday, when she came back, we tried again, and we tried again with our team huddle in the morning to kind of put a plan for the day and what are you going to do. That was 2 days ago. Today's Wednesday? Today's Thursday. Losing my days.
No, I think you're right. I think today's Wednesday.
Is it today Wednesday?
Yeah.
So we put that into play on Monday again, and it seemed like that communication barrier was still there. So I'm utilizing someone in my office that's acting as like an office manager, if you will. That's what she was hired for. But she's really turning into more of the integrator type, where she's helping me with these processes and systems that I'm pretty horrible at. I can dive into them and do them, and I can set them up too. But to maintain them it feels impossible in my brain.
Brother, I feel that, believe me.
So she's helping me there. So what I did is, rather than get mad and hop on another call with her, because at that point I'd probably lose patience, I reached out to my office manager and I said, would you mind hopping on a call with her and see if there's something you're catching that I'm not?
Yep.
So between yesterday and today, she's doing that. So we're presently working on that part.
Okay.
In the meantime, I dove in pretty much 100% back into dispo.
But you sold some stuff.
I did. Sold 4 yesterday.
That's always a damn good feeling, isn't it? 4 in one day, man. That's a good day.
Yeah. Well, now, even though I'm complaining about the position, I won't take 100% credit because she put a lot of that marketing out there. I was just reaching out to people that saw it.
So I'm curious anyway. So what would the process look like if VA reaches out to buyer is interested? Is VA having that conversation with them anyway, or is that normally coming over to you and they're kind of just fielding like initial outreach?
She was doing that. Yeah. Right now, as of the past 24 hours, we have it structured like you just explained.
Okay.
Anybody that's interested is coming to me then. And we may keep that for a while because I want to make sure that on the transactional side of it that she's strong. It's not that she's had pretty decent conversations in the past, and she's moved properties.
Okay.
So the conversations she has are decent. I'm not going to say they're 100% okay, but that's coachable.
Is it?
I feel like it is. If you have a base to work off of.
You're right. Look, I don't have much perspective on it, right? Because I don't really have any virtual assistants that are in like a sales role. I've had people do cold calling and stuff like that in the past. But I feel that dispositions specifically is like a hardcore sales role, you know? Yeah,
okay. So, to your point, I'll say there's no solid answer for that. Like, I think something like that is coachable. To have good conversations was the answer I'll give you.
Got it.
But for the dispo role, I do agree with you because I've heard it explained in the past from somebody we probably know in the real estate world. He says, dispo is the F you pay me position. And I got to agree with that, right?
Yeah.
So one thing I have found with VAs, and not all of them, because some of them have worked with companies like ours for a while, and they kind of like mold that culture and personality back into ours.
Right.
But I have noticed a large portion of them are very textbook, task-oriented. You're not really going to get the swings in personalities.
Right.
Or to be able to reflect.
They're not salespeople.
Yeah.
They're not salespeople.
Reflect off of somebody's conversation.
Yep. And that's the thing. I think so much of it does come down to how you run and operate your business anyway, right? Like, I think about this all the time with our dispo manager, right? It's a lot of the deals that we've sold in the past, especially in the past, you know, we'll say before the same time you were talking about, right? Before September, October of last year, rates started doing what they were doing. But the 12 months leading up to that, I can definitely tell you that a lot of our deals would have sold even if there was nobody in that position and we just put it out there and we didn't even do a good job of fielding inbound inquiries. You know, there may have been 10 people that reached out to us on a property. I only responded to 3 of them because I was fucking busy. And, you know, we got more than we asked for anyway, right? So it's like, to your point, it's the difference of, is it a hard deal to move? Like, is it tight to begin with? Because, you're going to need to work harder. If the market is still like it was, you know, 18 months ago or anything like that, in a lot of ways, the deal is a lead magnet. It's going to bring people in for you. And it's not even a sale. It's order taking.
Yeah.
It's order taking.
Everybody looks like a genius in a good market.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. I'm just trying to think, though, like, with what you got, especially since you're already on top of it and everything, and you're already making corrective actions, like, you're probably already doing all the things that you need to get on the other end of it. I just don't know, though, if where we're at in the market right now, even in a perfect world, even with perfect training, perfect management in place, making sure that that VA does what you put in place for them, I still don't know if that's going to serve you to the highest potential. You know what I mean?
True. And I have somebody that we brought in with the intention of training to acquisitions with a sales background, was happy with the personality, and he started not too long ago and was actively going through our sales training. Excuse me. But of recent days with things that happen, I feel like that he's got the perfect personality for this. And I'm not
dispo.
For dispo. And I don't know that I'm going to put him in there right away because I'm going to sit here for a bit. I want to make sure transactionally we're good on that side.
Yep.
Because I do feel like, maybe this is laziness on my part, but I do feel like the dispo role can be a 2-person role.
For sure.
If I sit, because I wouldn't have moved those 4 properties yesterday if I had to pull a list of 20,000 buyers and send text messages out and respond to text messages. When it happens for you and we get those 20,000 texts out and 30 of them say, I'd be interested, those are the 30 I'm calling. I'm having progressive.
And that's where my head went. It's like, have somebody do all the legwork for you and everything. And then, if you have to have a sales conversation with a dozen people or sometimes even less, wonderful. Like I say all the time, like I'll have those conversations with buyers any day of the week. I mean, in the same breath, like I would have a conversation with a seller as well if they're qualified, motivated, and they've kind of already went through all the other check boxes. All of those conversations all day long. Yeah. You know, so if you can pre-qualify everything, there's nothing wrong with that.
So I say maybe part of the problem in the past was pride, right? So like we're saying, salespeople, right? We're all unique people. We're cocky sometimes, right? And you tell me that my contract was bad, I'm going to get offended. I'm probably going to fight you about it, right? Like, my contract can't be bad. So in that mindset, like this is a bad way to look at this, but I never until recently looked at dispo as a sales role. Because look, if I'm on the acquisition side and I give you a contract, you don't have to be a sales guy to sell that. I got you a great contract. Just move it. Send your email out. You're going to get 5 offers.
And I think that's our bias leading up till this time last year because, dispo was order taking. Mm-hmm. It wasn't sales. Yeah. Throw it out there and you're going to have people chomping at the bit to do a deal. So
I learned quickly that it is an important part of the sales process.
That's the thing. Really, every little piece of the business is an important thing, right? If you take away that VA that's doing all the data pulling and that goes away, well, guess what? That may be a $5, $6, $7 an hour VA that is part-time, but you take that away and everything else falls apart too. So
and then you're stuck doing it.
It's all really important, man. It's all really important.
So to double back on the beginning of this, like it was just the growing pains. This is what I wanted to BS about. Like, there's growing pains in everybody's business.
Yeah, no, there absolutely is.
And hard resets, which is what we went through. It was a hard reset.
Yeah, man. Talking about scaling back and everything, like I did the same thing, you know, right around, wasn't at the same time. It probably started for me around the same time, but I had my head buried in a bunch of big projects and everything, which kind of amplified everything for me, you know? But yeah, I think like we were talking before we started, it's so easy, to your point, letting ego get in the way and be like, oh, well, I don't want to be in this role because I need to be working on the business, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure a bunch of the groups, masterminds that you're in, a bunch of mentors, gurus, everybody preaches that you got to work on the business. You can't be in one of the seats and work on growing your business, improving systems, improving processes, recruiting, doing any of those things. You need to be able to work on the business.
Yeah. Yeah. I know we've all heard that. And that's,
it sounds wonderful.
Yeah. But you have to work in the business. I mean, as we grow and as we experience it for ourselves, and that's not just being told to you in a 2-minute Facebook video.
Yep.
You realize it's all bullshit. You have to work in your business to make it work. It's your business.
Yeah. And I think it's just amplified even more than normal right now because the market is doing what it's doing.
Yeah.
You know, like obviously people are still buying deals. Sold 4 yesterday. That's fantastic. You brought in 11 contracts in the last couple of weeks. That's fantastic. Like stuff's still happening, but nobody can dispute the fact that we are nowhere near where we were last year or 18 months ago. That's fine. It just means that everything's different. And when everything is different, means even if you had everything running perfectly in your business last year, nothing needed to change. You had the perfect people, which sounds like wasn't the case and usually isn't the case anyway. But even if everything was perfect, the way that you need to operate today is almost 180 degrees different of where it was before.
This is 1,000% important point that you're bringing up right now, because and to the point of working in versus on, or both, or like a hybrid of those, is how long have you been in this business?
In the wholesale side, 5 years.
5 years. So wholesale, we're 7 years in the business, right? So we've been through a few, maybe 1 or 2 really good cycle changes. Not like the extremes, but there's been some slight cycle changes. As you experience that and all of the education you put yourself through in the beginning of this, day one, I'm interested in real estate. Let's get into this. Whether it be flipping or being a landlord or whatever. You put hours and weeks and months into that, and then you started doing the business and you started making all your mistakes in the beginning and you grew off of that. Now you're a year or 2 in, you start getting ready to bring people into your business. You're trying to train them in a 4-week period of everything you learned in the past 2 or 3 years and expecting them to know everything that you know. And that's impossible. It's a more important reason to stay in the business to a degree, because when that pivot needs to happen, you've been there before. Look, the market's starting to change. Let's do this. Because the business will always have leads, in our business anyway, because if the interest rates go up, it doesn't solve that person's problem that's in a distress. They still need to sell that house. The exit strategy might change, but the purchasing doesn't. So there's still that business there. So once we realize that, then that's only going to make your team stronger moving forward, because you're then taking that's leadership. Then you're taking your leadership role seriously, and you're saying, look, I'm out ahead of this. And then you get your trust and confidence behind you from your team.
Totally agree. And like, I think it goes hand in hand with that. If you're making all of your decisions based off of what in your mind is historical data. I've seen this before. I've learned this through this mistake. I hire this way. I train this way, and it's worked for me in the past. This is the way that we've always run our lead management process or our dispo process. Yeah, but if you're not super immersed in it, everything that you have in your mind that you believe to be true that either led to a positive or a negative result in the past, it may not be the same now.
Yeah.
You know, like everything is changing, and that's fine. You just have to be actually immersed in it, you know?
Because then you can realize it's happening. And that's, I'm guilty of that. You may be guilty of that yourself. Like
100%.
Thinking everything's going the way you want it to. Until it gets really bad, and realizing it never went the way you wanted it to until it got bad.
Yeah, man. I think that's one of the things that I have always been decent at is pivoting and adapting.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I think one of the funniest things was last year. You guys don't list. No, you do list some of your stuff like wholesale deals on the MLS, right?
All of them. Yeah.
All of them. Okay. Well, not all of them if they're out of state, are you?
Yeah.
You are?
Mm-hmm.
How are you doing that right now? Just finding a flat rate broker in that state?
Yeah. Either like a self-listing service, because our contracts all give us permission to do it.
Okay.
So either that or we partner with a realtor in another state.
Okay. I like that. Well, I definitely want to explore that with you. So when you're doing that, does it seem that, I know it's early on for a lot of this stuff out of state, but are you getting more traction with the tools and softwares that you're already using, like Investor Lift, or are you getting more traction from stuff being listed?
Of late, I would say Investor Lift.
Okay.
And were we on here when we were talking about that? I don't know if we were,
but we were eating, so I don't know. Maybe we'll make that live. Maybe we won't.
I'll lightly go into the recap of that. We're still using the tool. We're using InvestLift as our main source of marketing to our buyers, and we haven't been utilizing it to its full potential. And really, when we started digging into it internally and within the office on the dispo side with my VA, myself, and the office manager, we found some tools in there that we weren't using to its full potential, and we just started doing that. So, and the out-of-state stuff is new for us, and where I say the traction is mostly Investor Lift is because we found that gap, and we're filling it. I haven't really had much luck. Maybe one that was on the market. One deal in Florida we moved yesterday. Outside of that, it's a combination of Investor Lift and pulling data off of PropStream. That's been pretty strong.
So interesting, though. So even in Pennsylvania, you have more traction with Investor Lift for selling your deals than you do listing them on the MLS.
Currently, yes. That would have been a different answer last summer.
Okay.
Much for the same reasons we already talked about.
Got it. That makes sense. Yeah, because we talked about it a lot, right? Like, my experience was very different. And it just goes to show, it's like you're running a successful company. I'm running a successful company. The way that you do it is different than the way that I do it.
Yeah.
What's leading you to success is different than what's leading me to success.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's great advice to anybody. Don't think that the way that you do it or the way that I do it or the way this other guy does it is the magic pill. People fall into that trap all the time. Like, you got to figure out what works for you.
Consistently.
Yeah, you got to be consistent. It's a weird pill to swallow, though, right? Like, when we first talked about Investor Lift and everything, like, I couldn't wrap my brain around it. I'm like, man, they're crushing with this thing. They're moving all their deals and everything. And I'm like, man, we're still selling everything, but we're not moving anything through there. So what the hell, what's going on? But it all comes down to just the way that we run our business is different than the way that you run yours.
Sure.
You know, doesn't matter as long as it's working, right? Make tweaks, make changes, make things come together.
Well, like anything else, what you see of the tool on social media is the highest level, best of the best, what you can get out of it. And what you choose to buy into may not be the best of the best. So when a tool comes out, of course, that's marketing 101, right?
That's true also.
They put the tool in front of you, and when you try and use them, oh, look at this update. That's pretty cool. And they click on it, and there's an error message that says, sorry, you're a peon. This isn't your level.
Yup.
Right?
Pay another 50 grand or whatever it is. And that's all well and good, too. We were talking about that, I think, also before we were rolling. Like, it's very easy to justify paying for these high dollar software as a service platforms when it's like, all right, like, well, what's your average deal size right now? Your average assignment.
So I just looked at this morning, 21,000.
21. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. We're right in the same realm. We're usually between 19 to 21 any given quarter or whatever. But when that's your deal size and you have a software that's, whether it's $5,000 a year, 10 grand a year, 20 grand a year, even 50 grand a year, it's easy to be like, well, all that I got to do is
just
do 3 extra deals and it already pays for itself.
Yeah.
It's a blessing and a curse, you know?
So the normal way I would usually look at things is exactly that. Like, well, this isn't working the way I want it to. Let's throw more money at it. I'm sure it'll work better if I just throw more money at it.
And sometimes it does. Like, I have had that in the past, you know, I have. Most of the time not, though.
Recently, and I can't credit myself, I credit my office manager. Her name is Barb. She slows me down and she says, look, why don't we learn what we have 100% in and out? And then if you want to raise it up from there, maybe that's a good idea. But you don't even know what you're using right now. You're right.
It's definitely good to have somebody to reel you in that way.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that.
That'll be a game changer for me. Just to have that person right next to me. Mm-hmm. She's in the office next to me, and she's my office mom, if you will.
I love that, man. I couldn't agree more. Like, my trans coordinator is also my executive assistant, and like, I'm just too all over the place with a lot of things. Yeah. Like, obviously I can run a business. I can do all this crazy shit that most people can't wrap their head around, but I can't do like normal, like basic human functions, like, you know, schedule an appointment, order food. I can't do any of that stuff. You know?
I can relate to that more than you know.
But that is an important thing. And like, you got to remove some ego from yourself also and just be like, yo, I suck at this and that's okay. I'm going to put this person in this role to offset my shittiness in this position. And that's okay.
That was a growing pain for me, honestly. Like, I never wanted to admit I was bad at something. Mm-hmm. If I was bad at it today, it's because I didn't know it enough.
Yep.
And it's okay now for me to be bad at something and be okay being bad at it as long as I find somebody that's good at it.
What do you think, out of everything with the wholesale company specifically, what do you think you personally struggle with the most?
So I'm a good coach and a bad trainer, if that makes sense.
I don't think it does. Elaborate.
I can bring you into my organization and I can train you on how to do the job. But if you want me to do that longer than 2 weeks, you're going to lose me. The ongoing training, because my brain's somewhere else. I want to go do something else. And now that I have you here,
got it.
The support, I would say, is really been a pain of mine.
Got it. So I can resonate with that for sure. But what was the way that you said that? You said you feel that you're a good coach, but a bad trainer. Is that how you phrased it?
Maybe that should be the other way around. A good trainer and a bad coach. Whatever is the longer term one is the one I'm bad at.
Okay.
Maintaining that ongoing training internally, externally, Zoom calls, things like that, the support that your teammates would need, I wasn't giving that consistently. And that was 100% my fault.
I totally understand. And I feel the same way. The way that I explain that, tell me if you resonate with this. I am a good leader and a terrible manager.
Yeah, that's probably the better way to say that.
Because I'm the same way, man. Like, I'll teach, I'll coach. Any day of the week, somebody comes to me with a problem, an issue. I don't care what I got going on. I'll drop it. I'll help you. We'll turn it into a learning lesson. Yeah. And maybe even make like a recorded video that turns into a training for the whole company out of it. I'll do that at any point. But I'm not going to follow up the next day to see if you did the process that was laid out. And like, I can't do it.
Exactly.
To your point, I'm onto something else. My brain is not there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So rather than ruin somebody else's life when I bring them in, the new guy I brought in for sales, I have somebody training him who's a trusted person that I know does sales training, and he's working every day with him one-on-one for 4 hours a day.
Got it.
Something that I wouldn't be able to do, but it's making him a stronger team member and a stronger salesperson. Mm. He's got the sales base in a different industry, so he had that working for him. But now we're really molding a good acquisitions person. I can't say we. He's molding one with him. We brought him in because he's a good fit to the culture. And I really think he'll be a great asset moving forward. And I haven't decided really where his permanent home in acquisitions or dispositions yet. But he's going to be a good fit either way.
I love it, man.
And maybe not because of me, and that's okay.
No, yeah. You should be able to look at that with even more pride and say, yeah, I built something that is repeatable without me. Yeah. And, can grow and scale anyway. Like,
I'm excited about that because he's my, I know you relate to this. He's my ninth, maybe my 10th acquisitions person in 3.5 years.
Okay.
And hopefully he sticks for a bit.
You had to have more than 10 in 3.5 years. At this point last year, you said you got up to, 12 people?
Yeah, but 2 of them were acquisitions. So in the acquisitions role specifically.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, it was 10 in acquisitions.
Got it.
And it's a larger turnover than it even sounds like, because a lot of those gaps where we didn't have them, I didn't backfill them right away. I would usually jump back into that seat for a good 2 or 3 months, and then work on getting somebody else to come back in.
Got it.
But now hopefully we're at a point where we bring somebody into a stronger support system. And now to your point, like, I don't mind anybody coming to me with a problem. We can solve that right now.
Yep.
As long as my focus isn't there for the next month and a half.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it does drive me nuts too if we're addressing the same issue that we already did 5 times before. Like, that's part of leadership too that I struggle with, is putting my fucking foot down and saying, yo, we already did this. You know the expectations. You know what you're supposed to do. You have the training. You have the resources, and you just didn't fucking do it.
Yeah.
I'm really bad at that, man. And I'm working on it.
Well, that's it. There's a button of patience there when it comes to laziness, because some of that's laziness.
A lot of it is.
Yeah.
You're right. A lot of it is. It's growth, man. It's growth.
Isn't it fun, though?
It is. It's
it is fun.
Can you say that I already know the answer to this? It's rhetorical. Like, the issues that you have today are not the issues that you had a month ago.
No.
And they're not the issues you had 3 months ago.
Nope.
They're always changing.
Never run away from problems in the business. Some become bigger, some become smaller, but there's always going to be, and there doesn't always have to be, problem is a bad word. Challenges. Let's call them challenges.
Okay.
Even as you grow, you're always gonna get to a point where you're stretching something too thin.
For sure.
And that becomes your new issue. And that's okay. That's what we're here for.
And that's exactly what we were talking about at the beginning of this, right? It's like, yo, I pushed the hell out of this and I broke something else.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing, man.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing. I know Mark Zuckerberg, one of his like famous quotes is like that. I think that is the motto for Facebook, or it was anyway. It's like, move fast and break things.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I love that, man. Like, I love pushing everything to the limit and seeing what the weakest link is.
Mm-hmm.
How do we improve on that?
There's sometimes an understated importance in what we're doing right now. It's like, it's either, you're in your business on a day-to-day basis, or you go to a mastermind, which I'm also a part of, right? But the importance of like pulling on your local resources and collaborating like we're doing right now, like there's
100%.
such a big importance in that, because now even just sitting for an hour or whatever and talking about some of this stuff, we need that, because we don't have that person in the office maybe to bounce that off of.
Totally. And yeah, a lot of times it's not even about the advice or the feedback of the other person. A lot of times just saying the issue out loud, we realize the answer to it before anybody even freaking says anything.
And some of them you don't want to go outside of your office and start yelling it into space where your team members can hear you.
That's very true. That's very true.
But then you say, man, I'm glad I got that off my shoulders.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, look, that could expand far outside of the realm of real estate, right? That's just personal development and self-help type of stuff, right?
Sure.
Like, same aspect as journaling and writing your thoughts down, getting them out of here where we got all this craziness, and getting them down onto paper. Like, it changes everything. I don't know why. I don't think anybody really knows why things do work that way, but
it's been, this whole experience in the past 7 years has been a great growth journey, because my background's in the firehouse, and that is, you go to work and you're working at 100% for whatever your shift is, and you come home, you're not talking about work some of the times because you don't want to tell your family about that. So you compartmentalize a lot of that stuff. And when my career was over, there was this adrenaline that I just wasn't getting. I found a way to get that again. The challenges in the business are very equal to the challenges coming up through the fire academy. It's weird to.
That's interesting to hear.
Put them on the same lines like that.
For
but
sure.
It's there.
Wow.
It's a new challenge.
It's definitely a new challenge, but you get the same level of fulfillment.
I do. So you're solving a problem in real time in the firehouse. You're also solving a problem in real time in the business, and you don't always know the answer to it. Same as a fire scene. You're walking into a lot of things blind. So I can unite those two thoughts and relate it to my past. Like the bell rings, you get on the truck, you might get there 5-10 minutes later, depending on how far it is. You have about that long to prepare yourself mentally for what you're going to. Could be a car accident, could be a fire, could be anything. When you get there, most likely you've never been to that building or house before. So you can do all the training in the world. You're going to see new things when you get inside. Maybe you don't see anything because it's pitch black and the smoke's banked down to the floor. So there's challenges in every single call you would go on. That's business. You walk in every day, you don't know what you're going to walk into. You got to figure it out.
That's not true. Man, I love that. That's deep. That's deep. I was just having a conversation the other week on that same topic of a lot of people do the mental masturbation and like never take the first step to either starting a business, doing their first deal, or maybe they already have a business. Maybe they run a wholesale company and they're doing a couple deals a year, but they don't take that next step to make that first hire or put a, dispositions person in place or whatever, because they're worried about step number 10 when in reality, all they got to do is step number 1, because you don't know what issues are going to arise between step 1 and step 4, let alone step 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right? You can have a framework, you can have an idea, and the way that you do that is, right, just self-education, putting yourself around other people that are in the industry, being in masterminds, reading, being on different groups and everything. But at the end of the day, you still don't know what the hell is going to happen.
You don't. You, a lot of us, I know I do, you act on gut feelings sometimes. And if it doesn't work, then you got to pivot. That's life. I mean, that's not just business. That's life.
That is life. But as I'm thinking about it, with your history and being a firefighter, like that probably mentally prepared you in a lot of ways deeper than you can think, right?
It's funny you bring that up because I had a conversation with Mel, who was a nurse in her past. Being a firefighter also meant that I had to have my EMT license because a lot of times career firefighters, you have to have your EMT. So we'd also run ambulance calls. And she had asked me one day, because I didn't even think about this, and she's like, you never did sales before you got into real estate. Like, what made you a good salesperson? I said, I don't know, maybe some of that comes naturally. And she said, do you think anything has to do with the EMT school you went through? I didn't know what she meant by that, but now I do. Your training, when you roll up on a patient, not all of your patients are conscious. You have to get as much information out of about that person from either the surrounding people that witness something, or if they are conscious and they're intoxicated or too many drugs or whatever it may be. Maybe there's a stroke involved. There could be a number of things. You have to get all the information that you possibly can out of somebody you met in 15 seconds. So if I get an opportunity to sit in front of somebody for a half hour, I'm usually going to close the deal as long as you're not unconscious.
Dude, I love that. I love that. Like, I talk to people all the time about sales, right? Because so many people have a negative mindset around even that word, right? Not people in business or whatever, but your average person hears the word sales and immediately their mind snaps to that slick dude on the used car lot and everything, trying to con somebody into doing something. And that's what people think of sales as. And it's not, man. It's just, it's communication, Yeah. And
now, I'm impressed for a long period of time, the negative connotation has never swayed away from car sales. So good for them.
I know, right? I know. It's crazy.
Always car sales.
It's always them. Now, a lot of people, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, because a lot of people despise wholesalers and everything, and they think that wholesalers provide no value to the real estate industry.
Yeah.
Like, we are the scum of the earth giving lowball offers and taking advantage of people. What are your thoughts on that? I've got a whole lot of thoughts on it, but I'd love to hear yours.
So that depends on who you mean, like what people you work with, like realtors or
just in general. Like, let's say realtors or other investors that just despise wholesalers.
I love all of those opportunities because we've gotten that in the past too. I'm sure you have.
Yep.
Still do probably. That's an education moment. That's a coachable moment. Like I love spending time on the phone or in person with those people that say that and explain to them what we do. What I thought you were going for was more the realtor angle, because I've gotten this from realtors before where they called us and because they've seen some Facebook advertising or live videos that we did, and you guys flip houses or your wholesale houses. can you make an offer on this house? And one in particular was really offended by the offer on their client's behalf and yelled at me on the phone. And we ended up hanging the phone up. And I was like, that's not right. Like, something needs to be mended here. So I called the next day and I said, can I take you out to lunch and just explain to you what we do and how we do it and how we come up with what we come up with? And she took me up on it. And to this day, we've gotten deals from her. And it's just it's an opportunity for education.
Dude, if that's not a golden story right there, I don't know what is.
I don't like somebody being mad at me when I know I did nothing wrong. So I'm going to get to the bottom of that one.
Dude, I love that. I love that. So what do you think, like, so what would be your rebuttal to that agent when she made whatever claims that she did? You know, like if the claims were wholesalers don't help the real estate industry at all, like, you know, your lowball offers don't help anybody, they don't help the industry. What's your feedback to that?
So what I explained to her in this particular situation was when we had an opportunity to sit down, I said, I understand that the offer seems low to you. And I'm going to explain to you today why we don't see it as being that way. And I did go into that where it's very rarely about money. In most cases, the sellers that we talk to, we're solving a problem, but it's not a monetary problem. A lot of people look at things as monetary problems. Very rarely is it. You're solving life situations. Mm-hmm. You're solving legal situations. You're solving something that somebody's really up against the wall and they need help today. And in order for us to help them, we need to be here. And it's not just us working with them, they're working with us. And they feel like you can solve that problem for them. The money becomes a non-issue.
Playing devil's advocate here. So you did that, you solved their problem, but they could have got more money. You made a $40,000 assignment on that. You stole their equity. What's your feedback to that?
Well, they gave us their equity. You know, they felt like we were...
If that's not the perfect way to phrase that.
And we agreed mutually.
Yep.
They gave us the equity. I didn't steal anything.
I think that summarizes all of it right there, right up front for people. It's like nobody held a gun to anybody's head.
Right.
Like there's nothing that makes me happier. And I can't tell you the last time that it happened because I'm somewhat removed from the acquisition side of everything, right?
Yeah.
But I remember early on when I first started the wholesale company, and like you, I did everything backwards of what people normally do, right?
Sure,
Flipped houses, built a rental portfolio, then went to wholesale, you know? And I remember distinctly, we had this property under contract, and I think we got the contract for like $80,000. Send out some marketing for it, and I think we marketed this thing out for 110, 115 or something. And I have a buddy of mine that reaches out to me, like literally as soon as we hit send on the email. He's like, dude, how the hell are you marketing that property out for that 110, 115? Like, what do you have it under contract for? I've been talking with this guy for like the last 6 months on and off, trying to get him to sell to me for 120, and he wouldn't do a deal. What the hell do you have it at that you're sending it out at 110 or 115?
Don't worry about it. Give me my 120.
Dude, I straight up told him, I was like, yo, I got it at like $80,000. He's like, how did you get this guy to sign for $40,000 less than me? And it's the same thing that you just said. It's not about the money. It wasn't about the money. The guy had other problems, other issues, and maybe there was some concerns that the seller had with knowing, liking, and trusting the other guy that he didn't have those same concerns with me. Yeah. But we address other issues. It wasn't about the money. It wasn't about the price. And that is such an awesome thing to be able to rub in somebody's face. It's like, dude, it wasn't about that. Like, you're focused on price over there. We tell our sellers, one of the first 2 or 3 things that we say on any sales call is, if you're looking to get top dollar out of your property, there's other ways to do it. It's not us.
Same.
It's not us.
You can edit that out, right?
No, yeah, don't worry about it.
It reminds me of a couple instances to your point. I'll play the other side of that. We've had some contracts that we've gotten lower than other investors, and we've had the seller. So there's always this stigma that the seller thinks we're lowballing them, just like you said. It's not always the case. In some cases, we've had sellers sign with us that told us other investors offered them more, But for whatever reason, they thought it was too much of an offer. It scared them away, which I thought was interesting. Like that was interesting even for me to hear.
It is.
Because maybe they field 4 or 5 offers. They're going to go ultimately with the one they know, like, and trust.
Yep.
But if we're all playing within a $10,000 window and this guy comes in 30,000 above all of us, it scares people away.
Yep. And a lot of times, that's one of the things that I wish there was less bad information going out to like newer wholesalers and everything.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of the negative stigma around wholesalers is really associated with the newbies that don't know what the hell they're doing. They're putting properties under contract way too high. They're making promises that they can't keep. They have no ability to actually close on the house if they needed to. They can't solve a lot of issues.
Yeah.
And usually their contracts suck. It's a legal nightmare and everything. And I think one of the biggest issues with that is, because we've seen it plenty of times, is even if somebody puts a property under contract with a seller for $150,000 or whatever it is, and you and me were looking at that deal and we're like, dude, 100 is the absolute best we can do. This dude bid 50 grand more than us.
Yeah.
Seller signed. 3 months later, 4 months later, contract finally expires. You and me go back to that seller now. And even though you would imagine logically that they now understand 150,000 was too much because this guy didn't get the deal done.
Yeah.
Right? They're still somewhat like psychologically anchored to that number. They are less likely to be realistic because even though they were shown that number, deal can't get done at that.
Yeah.
They're still stuck, man.
Yeah.
They're still
No,
stuck.
that makes sense.
And then it's just a sales process, right? And
Sure,
just
yeah.
kind of driving that stake in like, okay, Chris, do you want to go down this road again? Do you want to sign with somebody else for $140,000 and 6 months later you're still sitting here with the same deal, same problem, and you haven't really gotten anywhere? But it makes it an uphill battle for us because we're breaking false beliefs in our sales process now.
Now, understanding that there's a very low barrier of entry to wholesaling, so you get that as part of the mix, unfortunately.
Yep.
There's an opportunity there for us, I feel like, because I've tried it sometimes, and I'm amazed by some of the responses I get. If I get an email in my inbox that it's that property, let's say, it's 50,000 apart, I'm not going to be the person that reaches out to the wholesaler and says, man, you're getting your contracts too high, take me off your list. I reach out and I say, look, this wouldn't work for us. Can I explain why? It may work for somebody else. That's fine.
Yep.
But in most cases, you want your buyer pool to be as big as possible when you're wholesaling. So I offer some assistance. And I'll be amazed at how many wholesalers get upset with me and say, I don't need your help. Well, you may. I'm just offering it.
Yeah, that's such a shitty mentality, man.
It is.
But I don't know. Trying to think on the other end of that. If I sent something out and somebody tried to tell me, like, that's too high, that's too this, I don't know. I think my ego might get in the way a little bit.
Sure, there's pride in that. And I wouldn't
Yeah.
word it like that. I would reach out and say, I like the area. I like the deal. For us, specifically, we would need to be here. Can I explain to you why?
Okay. Got it.
Right?
Got it. And yeah, if somebody shoots you down on that, when you present it in that way, it's like, you're probably not going to go too far, man.
Hasn't been everybody. Some people have entertained that conversation, but I have gotten responses like, well, if you're not willing to give me my asking price, then why further the conversation? I'm sure you'll go far.
Yep. And that goes, I'm sure in a lot of the groups that you're in and everything, people are probably preaching the same things that they are in the groups that I'm in. Like, relationships matter so much more now than they did a year ago. Like, don't just try to be transactional.
Right.
Right. There's a lot more to it that we need to work on and improve on as business owners and as leaders.
And I know early on, I had said my lead manager was phenomenal. That's what we put into our follow-up is more relationships than transactional. When we're calling follow-ups, they may have told us no 6 months ago.
Yep.
That's fine. We're still going to call and see how they're doing. We're not going to ask for a sale every time we talk to the seller.
Yep.
Because then you're just purely a robot at that point.
I love that.
We closed 2 properties this year that we followed up with for 6 and 7 years, respectively, consistently.
That is very long.
Yeah, but then they feel like you're part of the family, right? All right,
Yeah.
we're ready to sell now. Obviously, we're going to sell to you.
You're absolutely right. So with both of those deals, were they big spreads?
One was 30, it was a wholesale, and the other one was just about the same, 20 something, 24. I want to say.
Okay.
Yeah, so they were good.
That's awesome, man.
Yep.
That's fantastic. What CRM are you guys using?
We use Forefront.
Forefront.
It's a fairly new CRM.
Okay.
I want to say it's about 2.5 years old.
Okay.
We've been in it since the beginning.
Got it.
It's okay. It's got a Salesforce look to it. It's not as robust.
That's okay. If I can
It's not
ever
as expensive
give,
either.
yeah, right. I will say till the day I die, man, because it was so terrible for me switching systems. Like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend it to my worst enemy, you know? And I hear the same things like in the masterminds that I'm in and everything, that no matter what system you're coming from or going to, switching is scary. Like, it can be a really bad thing. And it absolutely was the case for me, you know? Like, we were on Freedom Soft up until, I guess, when did we switch over? Maybe 18 months ago. Maybe it was 2 years ago at this point. I'm bad at timelines. But we were on that system for years, and it served us well. Like, at the height of everything, I think we were bringing in an average of 25 to 30 contracts a month. Now, there was fallout and everything. We weren't closing that. But that just goes to show that the system did scale enough that it wasn't an issue, right? But the reason that I wanted to switch, there were a couple reasons. Main thing was I couldn't go deep enough into like some of the analytics and everything that I really wanted to.
Yeah.
So, you know, when you're doing anything at volume, being able to improve 3% over here and on your follow-up or whatever it is, 3% can make a big freaking difference to your bottom line at the end of the year, right?
Absolutely.
So I wanted to put a bunch of those things in place. And I also found, this is a shitty like pain point for me too, but at the time I found this artificial intelligence software that, you know, like there was AI wasn't a thing, right?
That's
back
the
then,
new hot thing, right?
But it wasn't then. Like that's one of the reasons that, you know, I burned a bunch of money with this company, and I guess I probably can't say their name, but it was basically real-time sales coaching. So while our reps were on a call, it's as they're speaking to the prospect, it's listening to what they're saying. It's listening to what the prospect's saying. It's analyzing and giving feedback to our sales rep in real time. Sounds wonderful, presented wonderfully and everything. I signed like a $50,000 3-year contract with them, which was fucking stupid in hindsight. The onboarding was really, really challenging. And that's when I learned, it's funny, like I learned so much about our sales process through that, because going into it, I was like, we have a script, we have a sales process, we have slightly different scripts for slightly different situations, scenarios, lead sources, whatever, but we're dialed the fuck in, right? I learned how much we weren't dialed in going through that process of trying to get all this AI set up. Because you had to have every single like decision tree built out, right? If this, then this, if this, then this, and have a bunch of just like conditional logic in there about your company and all this other crap, right? So onboarding was painful. Once it was finally set up and running, it probably took about 4 or 5 months of pain for me because we don't have a CTO, you know, like the tech guy is me. So now I'm fully immersed in this thing and getting it set up and in place for all our sales reps and everything. And yeah, that was just painful even getting there. Once it was up and running, we switched our CRM from FreedomSoft over to Podio.
Okay.
And dude, that in and of itself, remove the AI from it entirely. It was like dropping a fucking bomb into the company. Yeah. You know, because we went from 25 to 30 contracts a month down to nobody knows how to use this new system. Again, remove the AI from it entirely. Nobody knows how to use the system. Some of our leads that we were pushing from our old CRM to the new one, they got lost, and it was just a nightmare, man. So I think for the first 3 months of switching, It's like, dude, we dropped down to like 2 or 3 contracts a
Wow,
month.
that's a big drop, quick.
Huge drop. And then we started ramping back up and everything. Got the
Yeah.
AI stuff in place. And it did what this company promised on, kind of, but there wasn't enough utility to it. There was like a lot of cool factor to it,
Yeah.
but there wasn't enough function behind it, if that makes any sense. Like,
It does.
if
That
I
happens
could go
with
back,
more than just
man,
that company.
I would have way rather dumped that 50 grand into bringing in different sales trainers into the company to
Yeah.
work with our people, either one-on-one or a one-to-many basis. Like,
Yeah.
in hindsight, I was trying to,
You were saving 20 grand to spend 50 grand.
and not only that, I guess in my mind, I was trying to make our sales process into a fucking robot.
Yeah.
It's like, if everything worked exactly the way that I had hoped and wanted it to be, in hindsight, I think it would have entirely removed the human element, which is what sales is. It's
Sure.
the connection, right? Like, you can say all of the right things in the wrong
Yeah.
way and not connect, not make a sale, not make a relationship. And inversely, you can say all of the wrong things, but in the right way and
Sure.
go a lot further, right? So
But
I learned.
at that moment, it was important for you to do, and you probably took some positives.
Oh,
out
I
of
learned a lot through it. I
it.
learned a
So
lot.
it was a good part of that journey for you then.
For sure.
Now, I
For
do
sure.
see a great opportunity in that app if they expanded into like a phone app where you can use in your marriages. So when you're having an argument with your wife,
Right?
the app can tell you who was right and who was wrong.
You're always going to be wrong, brother.
Yeah.
You're always going to be wrong.
We don't need an app for that. That's a waste of money.
Send me the $20 a month, you know? I love that. Is there anything else that you want to go into with wholesale that you think could be valuable information for anybody that's listening to this?
I think you stated it already. Is getting into wholesaling and I said it too. It's like a low barrier of entry to get into. But if you educate yourself the right way and start putting into practices the right way without wanting to get ahead too fast, like go step by step. Get comfortable in step 1 before you go to step 10. Go to step 2 next when you're comfortable in step 1. It doesn't have to be a rush to the finish line. This could be a long career for you if you make it that way. But put the education up front. Learn everything you need to learn about the beginnings of the business before you build a 50-person company. If you do it by yourself for a year, great. Just do it right. That's my advice.
No, I love that. Where do you see the wholesale company for you? Where do you want to go to?
Moving forward, I'm still in that reverse mindset right now, meaning we had a big team. I don't want to get there again too quickly. I want to create a good foundation that whether a new person comes in or we cycle somebody out, it doesn't matter. I want that strong foundation that we trust that we can build off of. Once I have that, then I'll look to expand again, possibly in the future. But right now, that's not on my agenda. I just want to be consistent.
I love that. Consistency is so important. And it's a challenge, right? It's a challenge.
It is. Getting better at it in some cases, but not every case yet. So I wouldn't want to bring somebody into a known broken system. I was more than happy to do it in the beginning. I'll bring everybody into the broken system. But now that you recognize it as being broken, let's fix the system and then we'll bring people in that can actually thrive off of it.
I love that. So do you see yourself still running a wholesale company 5 years from now?
I do.
Yeah.
I would have said no last year. I say yes this year. In some facet, I'll be a part of it.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Does that mean you will build other verticals with it and scale on the fix and flip side again? Or what's a perfect 5-year plan look like for you?
The fix and flip I'm going to leave that to Mel. She does that whole side of the business. So if she'd like to do that, then I wouldn't mind building the both of them parallel. But I'm really horrible at that side. You don't want me in project management? I can raise money for you. But other than that was all her.
Okay.
I would like to do some other things. I have some ideas that are non-real estate related. In the real estate space, I don't know. I've thought about apartment buildings. I'm not sure I want to go that route. I'm intrigued by storage units, which I know is a popular thing. But I'm not sure. I used to have like 10 ideas of things I wanted to do in the next 6 months. But I really, and this was a struggle for me, honestly, but I'm at the point now where I have to dial it into just a wholesaling company. And once I get that right, then I'll start bringing the other ideas back in.
Dude, my God, you're speaking to my soul. It's like I'm the freaking idea guy, right? Like I have like 10 brilliant ideas a day, and I've been that way for like my entire adult life anyway.
Yeah.
And it takes such discipline, especially when everything is going well and you do have a bunch of cash in reserves and everything, to not jump into a bunch of other things.
That's true. And I've been like that, and you probably have too, for a while. Like when I was younger and out of high school, I wanted to try something entrepreneurial. It wasn't real estate back then. It was like, ooh, I can start an eBay company, and this is how I'm going to do it. Oh, I can do an Amazon company. This is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to do 4 of them at the same time. And none of that ever panned out because you never slowed down enough to actually learn to do it the right way.
Yep. No, absolutely.
So that's what my goal is now. Let's do it the right way, and then I'll bring some other things on. Because honestly, the more we learn about business, take the product or take the service or take the system out of it, once you learn how to correctly run a business, you can probably put that model into anything and run that a lot. The learning curve will be a lot quicker than it was this go around.
Totally agree, man. And I think that's one of the things that I love so much more about the wholesaling side of the business than I did about flipping is the sheer volume of everything that we do, whether it is marketing, lead management, contract sales, whatever, because with volume comes a hopefully repeatable and consistent data set that you can make decisions on, right? It's like, even if you're flipping 30, 40, 50 houses a year, which is a lot, I think it's a lot harder to come up with standard guidelines and know how much you're going to spend on things. How much does it cost on average to do this? Because there's so many freaking variables, you know?
Yeah.
It's so much more consistent with what we do in the wholesale company. Like, again, going back to direct mail, I think we were talking about it before we were rolling.
Yeah.
And one of the mail campaigns that we did specifically, dude, we were sending 10, 12,000 pieces a week for years. Like this one specific mail piece, I've sent over 1 million pieces of. Like I have a lot of historical data, you know?
Yeah.
And that makes everything a hell of a lot easier when you're not making an emotional decision when you say, okay, I'm going to dump an extra $20,000 this month into this marketing campaign. It's simply a math problem. And anybody that can do basic, simple math that has enough of a reliable data set to look at, when you can look at something and say, okay, for the past 3 years, we've gotten 5x, 6x return on ad spend on this. And we have not really seen that point of diminishing return where if we do scale up, if we do ramp up, even exponentially, that it's going to fall off a cliff, you know? So
you would
it
expect
makes
it to follow suit.
Exactly. And that's not always the case, right? We've also had marketing campaigns. TV was one of them. We ran TV for over a year. And we did hit a point of diminishing return. And, you know, like it's not always the case. And not everything does scale in a linear fashion.
I would imagine some sources you can drown out pretty quickly, quicker than others.
Right. But again, back to our point that we made earlier on, it also makes it hard to cut campaigns when it's like, well, I'm only spending $5,000 a month on that one, and one deal is going to pay for it for the next couple of months.
Right.
Maybe we hold on for another 2 months, another 3 months. What's your thoughts on PPC? Are you doing any?
I'm not.
No?
We did early on wrong. I mean, we did it ourselves, and we spent a lot of money, and I just never went back to it.
Okay.
Honestly, never really had the need for it. Maybe because we were in that growth stage where I was either in acquisitions or dispositions, so we were either getting a lot of contracts or moving a lot of contracts.
Yep.
I didn't feel the need to put another source in to get more leads.
Totally understand. Right. Totally understand.
Maybe in the future.
Maybe in the future. That was one of them campaigns that I also started, self-managed, and I think we did a couple deals out of it. It was absolutely profitable, but I didn't have the time to manage it or anything, so stopped.
Yeah.
And then a year later, 2 years later, I hired a company to do it and manage it for us. And that was one of them campaigns that I think I ran for 4 months, pulled the plug. We spent 30 or 40,000 bucks and got a big zero return on ad spend out of it.
So ironically,
Not a victory story.
We did pull. In fact, I think it might have been our first. It was our second deal. We pulled our second deal off for PPC. It was really early on. It was our first year in business, and I said we should try Google. Let's see what happens. And I set it up myself. And I forgot about this story until you just asked me that question. When you set up, I don't know what it looks like now, but when you used to set it up, you have to pick like your location or your region that you want to market to. So I picked. We were living in Chester County, and we were doing business in Chester and Berks. So I did Chester County, Berks County, put the ad in place, put the words in place. I think it was a video ad. Uploaded the video, got it all set up, was excited about it. I threw $1,000 at it, and I hit go. That was like 5 o'clock that night. I woke up the next morning with some leads that came through the website and a zero balance. So where I put Chester County and I put Berks County, Pennsylvania, it defaulted to the United States, and I didn't unclick the United States. So I got a bunch of leads all over the place. Ironically, one of those leads landed in Reading, Pennsylvania, which is in Berks, and we got that one.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I got my $1,000 back.
I love that.
And that was the last time I did PPC.
There's nothing better than when you do like royally fuck something up.
Yeah.
And it still somehow works out.
Yeah.
You know? That's a beautiful thing. Because that's not always the case.
Oh, I know.
Not always the case. Sometimes it's painful. I do want to ask you though, because I feel that it's got to be a big and important thing for you. Like, what is it like working with your wife, right? Like, she's a big part of the business. I understand you branched off into different responsibilities, but still, by and large, like, you guys are in business together, right?
Yeah, so it's been great. So what we always split the business in half, no matter what we were doing, even before wholesaling. So it was always sales and marketing was my half, and the project management and a lot of the finances were on her half. I would raise the money, but she would nurture the relationships with the lenders. When we branched off into wholesaling, she didn't really follow that side of it. I was still the sales and marketing, which is really what wholesaling is.
Totally.
And continued flipping. She's not flipping as much as she was. She slowed down a bit. She went out and got a real estate license. I tell her she went to the dark side. That's okay. So she's been focusing on that and maybe building out some of the traditional sales for herself. And we just recently came to the decision, I think it was like January or February, it was right when I was scaling the team back, that we decided that I would take 100% of the wholesaling business, and the decisions were mine. We weren't collaborating on those anymore because we found ourselves, she was part-time in the business and I was full-time in the business. When we were both full-time, it was great because we would talk about it when we went home. We would talk about it in the office. We knew it was happening at all times. Now, my decisions on a 100% basis versus her 50% aren't always going to come together, and that's okay. It doesn't have to. But where she was lacking in that 50% knowledge, she would then come in and it would create these little mini arguments in front of the team, which is not healthy either. Why are you doing it this way? Well, because, we decided this was going to be my call, so I wasn't leaning on somebody for that decision-making anymore. It was me. So we found a difficulty in that and decided to, she removed herself from the wholesaling business completely, considers herself 100% ownership of our flipping company, which is 2 separate LLCs, and we treat them as such. If we have something she wants to flip, she actually buys it from us as a wholesale.
Love
so
it.
we treat it.
Do you at least cut her a deal?
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
I tell her it's a deal.
My man.
It's only 20,000 to you, but somebody else is going to give me 30.
That's right. It's a deal.
So she takes that on 100%. I take the wholesaling on 100%, and that has created, in an ironic way to say it, it's created a great divide. We love it that way.
No, I totally understand. And that's why I wanted to ask, because I know a lot of people wouldn't even attempt to work with their spouse because of potential tension or anything like that. And I think I can only speak for myself, right? Like, Cynthia was a lot more involved in, right now, I mean, she handles all of the rentals. She handles, screening, placing tenants, everything like that, and maintenance on everything with the rental portfolio. she was never really in the wholesale company, but especially when I first started it, she supported on a lot of things. She would fill a role, like if we happened to fire all of our sales team, 4 years ago, or everybody just left, or whatever the case may be, like she would step in and help out in some way, shape, or form. And her most integral part in anything that I did wasn't really related to either the flipping company, the rental company, or the wholesale company. It was really more so to my point earlier about me being a terrible, adult at a lot of things like scheduling or just simple organization type of task or whatever. Like, she kind of was my assistant for a lot of things business related for a long time, until probably 2-3 years ago when I hired my assistant. And when I did that, there was some uncomfortability with her, because she was like, well, I feel that I'm not connected to what's going on in the business anymore. I don't know as much about what's going on. I'm kind of in the dark on some things. So it was something that we collectively had to work through to get on the other end of. And ultimately, for me, the way that I looked at it, the way that I felt about it was, and still to this day, I don't really want to bring my problems home. Right. It's good to be able to open up and talk about things when the time is right. But if I have a really, really shitty day, I really don't want to come home, not because I don't want to talk about it and I'm trying to bury my head in the sand. It's that I don't want to burden you. I want to have a good night. I want to hang out with the kids. I want to do our thing, have our dinner, watch a movie, go out, whatever. I don't really want you to have the burdens that I have on me, because I know that I can handle them, but I know it's almost going to stress you even more.
Yeah, same with us. I mean, it's like you're spying on our house, because we went through this transition, and I would bring my problems home, and then she's the kind of person, she's a very empathetic person, so she would take that on, and then try and start solving my problems right away. I didn't want the problem to be solved. I can solve that.
Yep.
Just wanted that person to bounce it off of. So we've learned how to separate that. And verbatim with the comments you were making before about, I feel a little bit removed from that. And is this my camera that I'm going to be on this camera? Yep. Mel's going to watch this. So this sounds familiar, right? So she said the exact same things to me, but we've worked through that, and we're in a more comfortable spot now with the business versus personal.
That's awesome, man. Because I think too often people that I see in business only focus on growing and developing their business, and don't focus on growing and developing the other relationships they have in their life. And a lot of times that does mean with their spouse, but it can also mean with friends, family, and everything.
Yeah.
And it's so important that if you want people to stay with you, they have to be growing as well. And that doesn't necessarily mean having them be in the same things as you, and, actually being involved in the business, but it does have to do with committing to growing in that relationship, right?
Yep. Especially when you're starting a business, we've always worked well together. If we're into something 100%, we've always been friends before partners, because you are friends before partners.
For sure.
And we've stayed that course. Now, what happened when we went into business together and we dove all in, as the kids get older, we noticed that was taking away from them a little bit. So what I've noticed in the past year or so, since we've making this transition into the separation of business and personal, is she's able to spend more time with the girls, do more things one-on-one with them, where before, if there was something happening with the business and we were all in on it, that got pushed aside, unfortunately, in some cases. And, in some cases in business, you have to do that too. But when it happens all the time, then your relationships with your kids can suffer.
Right.
So that's gotten better organically.
That's huge. What is your I'm thinking of this from two different perspectives. What is your take on what you want your kids to take away from what they see you do in business?
That's an awesome question. I think what I want from all of them, and I'm not going to get because they're very different personalities, is to show that independence is okay. You don't have to rely on somebody else to survive in life. That's probably the most important lesson, no matter which path they take.
That's huge. That's huge. I love that, man.
Because if you asked me a couple of years ago, I'd be like, look what we're doing. You're going to be a real estate investor. Why would you do anything else? It doesn't have to be that. Just Don't rely on somebody else for everything in your life, and you'll be just fine.
I love that so much. Love that. 'Cause I think about it all the time with my oldest is 11. I know you got some a little older.
17, one of them. She's a senior this year.
My God. Oof. Oof. Yeah, well, we just started middle school, and already the outfits are starting to change and everything, man. It's crazy. But I think about it often, like, if I could only really get one message through to my kids, what would it be?
Are you asking me?
No, I'm just thinking.
Because I'm waiting for your answer.
I think about it a lot, and I think what you just explained summarizes a lot of it for me,
Yeah.
I really think it would just be to think for yourself, right? Like, with the way that, now this is like cancel territory because I'm going to bash the school system and everything, but like how much
just don't put it on Facebook.
These,
they're going to delete you if you put it on Facebook.
I don't care. Fuck it. I'm going to say it anyway. Every agenda that they're pushing, like in the schools, again, they are pushing in the elementary school. Now my daughter just going into middle school. A lot of the stuff that they're pushing, they shouldn't be pushing to kids at all, hands down, bar none. But they are. And my biggest problem with all of it is that maybe this is a dumb perspective anyway, because maybe this is the way that it's always been. I'm just kind of realizing it now, but it's all just indoctrinating kids to not think for themselves.
Yes.
To your point exactly.
Yeah, and that's the most important thing they can take with them. This is a different podcast episode. Yeah, we can go down a rabbit hole.
It totally is.
We'll be stuck in this for 5 hours.
I know.
And you picked the right person to bring this topic up to.
I know. No, we'll wrap it up here. Is there anything else that you would want to share with listeners today that are real estate investors or aspiring real estate investors?
I would say no matter where you're watching this from, I think we kind of reiterated the importance of learning the right way to be able to build yourself up. But not be afraid to reach out to somebody. It doesn't have to be you, doesn't have to be me, but somebody locally that's doing it. And it doesn't have to be somebody that's doing 500 deals a year. Somebody that's doing just a little bit more than you and not necessarily knowing how they do things, but how not to do things is the biggest lesson you can take with you, because shorten your learning curve.
Yep.
You don't have to try and figure everything out for yourself. This is what we did. We looked for mentors. We found a mentor. And then when you outgrow your mentor, which you should, you find a new mentor. And then that's how you grow. You don't have to grow by yourself. There's always somebody for support.
I think that's a golden piece there that a lot of people miss, is the not looking for the mentor that's doing 500 deals a year if you're doing 1 or 2, because they may have golden advice, golden feedback. But where they're at in their journey, there's such a large disconnect between where they're at and where you are. You're better suited learning from the guy that's doing 5 to 10 deals a year. Yeah. Learning from him, adapting, putting systems and processes in place. And then once you're there, going to find the guy that's doing 50.
Right. Because think of it, just like I said, you want to not necessarily know what they're doing, but what not to do in that stage of your journey.
Yep.
Specifically, the guy that's doing 500 deals a year might forget some of the mistakes you're about to make.
Absolutely.
That 5 deal person says, you know what, this happened to me last year. You want to avoid this. And that's big strength.
Definitely is, man. I love it. Well, it was a great episode. I'm glad that you came in. We got to share this with everybody. Where can people find you on social?
That's a funny question because Mel does most of my social.
You don't know. But you're on Facebook. You're on Instagram, right?
Yeah.
I think you're on TikTok too, aren't you?
That's my daughter's TikTok. I'm a professional dancer on her account.
Ooh, all right. All right. That's fire.
CM Cash Buyers is our Facebook page. CNM Housing Solutions is our flipping page. You can find me at Chris McGeady on Facebook and Mel McGeady. If you find Mel McGeady, you'll find everywhere else you can find us because I have no idea.
Beautiful. I love it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Boom.